Mm-hmm.
Let's go
south.
Yeah,
South-ish.
south-ish, I guess.
South-ish.
Southwest-ish.
Stay on the east.
Ron Barassi line. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one. Have I explained that to you just before? It's pretty much like a line. It's a bit rough, but goes like diagonally through Australia and splits it into rugby league and AFL territory. So, starting...
That makes sense.
Yeah, so you pretty much get New South Wales, ACT, Queensland in it, and then the Southwest. Anyways, Google Ron Barassi line. I swear I didn't make it up.
Before we get into the AFL, let's probably give an update in India. So Patel got another wicket. So England are now 26 for 3. The ball is absolutely turning and bouncing all over the place.
So they trail by 7 here with 7 wickets in hand.
Yes.
This test match is going to be over
tonight.
And if not tonight, definitely on day 3.
Definitely.
Because Ashwin's getting so much variable bounce. That stays down. The previous one, almost went over Pants head. So, and it's turning like there's a foot, 2 feet.
It's an absolute monstrosity of a deck. Let's be honest.
Yeah, for a day 2 pitch. If this match is done by day 2, you can say, well, this pitch is probably not real great.
There you go. Stokes still looking to attack.
Good thing for England is they've got the 2 best batsmen in there at the moment. Let's hope they can stay there and put on a bit of score so India have something they can chase versus the 3-run lead they currently have. AFL. So one of the stories came out during the week, Hugh McLuggage, the luggage, he signed on for another 3 years at Brisbane, keeping that core nucleus of players in the club. Of course, McLuggage was Brisbane's first pick 4 years ago now, I think it was.
Yeah, developing into a really good footballer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He filled his role very much and now trying to excel into, elite status.
Yep.
Especially with a lot of the Brisbane boys coming through from that, from those couple of drafts around McLuggage as well.
Yeah, probably at that that good status at the moment, trying to go to elite.
Yeah. And as we talked, in their window very much, they want to capitalise on the window they're in. They've got the team there. I think this kind of speaks well to the coach re-signed last week. McLuggage has seen, hey, the coach is committed to Brisbane. I'm going to commit to Brisbane as well. So I think they're going to try and keep that core nucleus around. No inside scoops at this point, but I'd say the Berry boys, I think both Jared and Thomas have extended last year or the year before. So I think they're both around for another 2 years at Brisbane after this season. So they're guys that came in all together, trying to keep that Brisbane nucleus together.
Let's have a look at the new man on the mark rule. So they've.
I thought that was interesting because to clarify, teams are playing club games at the moment.
There's some intra and then some where they're at. I think Carlton and Essendon have got a game scheduled.
Exactly. So as part of that, they've got the umpies there to officiate those games, so they can actually then try out some of these new rules, and it's quite interesting. I think this is probably the main one, and it may affect the season. I think they're going to blow this a lot to start the year. They're going to clamp it down so they can get it, clear that, hey, this is the rule going forward, and hopefully it eases off towards the end of the season as guys get more comfortable with it. Do you want to cover what the new rule is?
Yeah, so essentially the man of the mark is effectively banned from moving side to side. They're going to allow a tiny bit of lateral movement.
Well, in the intra-cup games, they haven't allowed any movement at this point. It's been pretty rough.
Yeah, so then they hand out a 50-metre penalty.
And a free 50 from it is rough too.
So if the man of the marks is shifted too far left or right, 50-metre penalty. What does this mean for the game going forward? I tell you what, for big, slow morons like me, it's very difficult because if there's a ruckman or a slower player standing there on the mark and you've got your jet, winger or midfielder that's got the footy, you just take them on. Do you know what I mean? You can't move laterally to anticipate and to sort of jockey. Which
I think is kind of the problem from what I've seen from some of the intra-cup games is guys that are, if they've taken the mark and they're going to kick the ball, they've got a guy on the mark. As he's going to kick the ball, say he drifts right or left to then takes 2 or 3 steps to kick the ball. Guy on the mark, out of habit, drifts with him, moves like 2 feet.
And they've been blown the whistle.
Blown the whistle. and saying, "Hey, you've moved off the mark," and he was like, "Well, that's a bit rough." I'd say that's a bit rough. Like if you're, dicking around, running back and forth, multiple meters, bouncing up and down on the mark, I could understand like, hey, you're just getting the rules here. You're off the mark.
It seems like.
But I'd say if the bloke's moving, he's kind of moving where the mark is. So I think. Well, I think we'll see. Have to see how it plays out. Yeah, have to see how it goes in the start of the season.
Yeah,
how strict they are. Maybe they're being overly strict with it in these.
Just try and get it in their heads.
Exactly, in their heads that hey, this is the rule. We're going to be blowing it. We'll blow it heaps now. So then when we get into week 1, 2, and 3, that we can blow it less.
Wonder why, dude? Think to try and speed up the game.
I don't know.
Have more guys taken.
Honestly,
off.
I was going to ask,
what is this? What problem? What problems is this solving?
Yeah, I don't know. If it's not broken, don't fix it. That's what I would have thought. I imagine the idea is to make it even faster and, given guys...
Puts it in the hands of maybe the speed guys that they can get off their mark and get away. And, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe it's the sick of guys on the mark, going left and right, trying to put the kicker off, trying to kick
sort
goals.
Of go with it. Like a guy that's got the kick and...
Well, he's going to take his time. Like he's got his routine anyway.
Yeah, but then
necessarily.
If kicking for goal though, but like in the middle of the pitch, it's different.
Yeah, they generally. Oh, it depends on the situation, but but the thing is, in the past, you got a guy on the mark here, and then this guy's got the kick. He can take off 90 degrees to the right, 90 degrees to the left. He can try and take you on.
Yeah,
like.
And outside
what's wrong with just being able to jockey on the mark like that?
Yeah,
I think it's a dumb rule.
Yeah, outside of kicking for goal, like the guy who's taking the mark, he's kicking anywhere he wants. Like
and he can take you on top of that.
Yeah.
So
I've completely forgotten Cameron's last name, the Brisbane Lions forward.
Rayner.
No. Oh, not Cameron Rayner. Who am I thinking of? Oh, Charlie Cameron. That's
Charlie.
I'm thinking of Cameron. I've got the right one.
Yes.
Cameron. I think this rule highly benefits him.
Oh yeah.
Because if you got a big defender on the mark, you're going to go.
Charlie's going. See, you can't move, and he's past you before you can blink an eye.
I can have 2 or 3 steps. Feign I'm going to kick this, and then I'm taking off.
Yep.
You can't move, and I'm away, and I've already created separation from you. Yeah. Goal time. So I'd be interested to see how Charlie Cameron goes.
Just take
if he's scoring 5-6 goals every week in the start of the season, you'd be like, maybe this rule's not real great.
I'd be interested to see how many marks he takes in the inside 50 to be.
Good point. He's not a leaper.
I do see what you mean. Yeah. I think it does give the advantage to the guy with the footy. We'll see how it plays out.
But I guess if you think more midfield, those smaller midfielders around the ruckman, if you're one-on-one, you're small and he's big, you're quick, he's slow.
Yeah, take
him on. Exactly. Yeah. You're like, I now have 100% have benefit to take him on versus, I need to make a kick here.
Yep. All right. The Crows infighting. You see this second year in a row. They've had an intra-club. So last year...
It's Adelaide. You're lucky no knives were pulled.
Last year it was Billy Frampton and Kyle Hartigan going at it. This one, did you boys see the footage?
I've seen the video.
Yeah, saw the footage.
Yeah. So essentially Wayne Malera, he trips Jake Kelly. He's tackled Kelly.
Yeah.
They both get up.
Malera, I think, did Kelly have the ball and he's handballed it on? He's released it?
The ball was long gone. Yeah, the ball's long gone. And then, so they've both sort of gotten up from the tackle.
On their way up.
And Jake Kelly's just taken that first or second step to follow the footy. And you can see Wayne's deliberately put out his right foot.
Yeah. He not even put it out. He's kicked. He actually looks like he's kicked his legs out. He's flicked his leg. It's a kick.
Took his feet out. I don't know. In the moment, maybe you think, it's a teammate. Who cares? Jake Kelly comes out fired up, and there was
he gets up and he's grabbing he's
a little bit of jump punch and niggly. No, there's nothing serious in it. There wasn't big haymakers or anything.
They weren't throwing hands reckless abandonment.
And there was the last few seconds of the intra-club as well. So I think after the game there's photos of them, having a little cuddle and that. Yeah. But 2 years in a row, you start thinking, is it a Crows thing? Is it a culture thing?
Because pre-season and training usually happens behind closed doors. Fighting is not uncommon in pre-season. I think it's like, especially when
we go back to the NFL.
yeah, if we pick an NFL, there's a lot of fighting. There's a lot more blokes on a team,
Yes.
but even still, it's it's where you build chemistry. It's where you might not like an aspect of what this bloke does. Sometimes, yes, you need to get in his face, throw hands a little bit. Team separate you, but it builds chemistry. It builds camaraderie a little bit. It's like, hey, I've got this problem with you. Let's sort it out here and now versus let's let it go through the season. So I'm not too worried about it. Would not surprise me if Kelly has had an absolute blinder in this club game and Wayne's just super frustrated. He's been beaten off the park and he's just like, well, I'm just going to, be a little bit of dick here. Maybe thought it was be funny, and Kelly's just like, hey, don't kick my legs out. You've been an absolute cunt in this process.
Yep.
So, they're club mates, and, after the game, they've settled down and heat of the battle, that kind of sort of stuff. But, yeah.
I think the big difference between this and, the pre-seasons that I've played as an amateur loser footballer, there's a lot of money on the line. There's your reputation. You want to constantly be...
Well, you're fighting for a spot in this game.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like you're playing with a bunch of blokes that you went to school with and, that you like, always having beers with after the game and whatever. It's a business. It's a competition. You're constantly competing.
Which is what makes me think that maybe Wayne is frustrated in this.
Yeah.
He's been beaten up and down the park in this game, and he's, brain snap. Just done something stupid.
Yep.
I absolutely guarantee the coaches handed him his ass after this game and said, hey, that's not on. That's not our culture.
Yeah.
Go apologise. Let's go make this right.
Yep.
Because, they, they've got a couple of cameras. They probably hope it didn't get out with the understanding that, hey, maybe it does get out. But, it's not a great look for the Crows, who didn't do overly well last year.
No, they were wooden spooners, were they not?
Yes.
They did win their last two games. So we've got Joe Root here.
Finish up the AFL. Let's talk about Root. So that's our AFL for the week.
Well, there was... Do you want to cover Danny Flora?
Oh, yes, let's cover this. Yeah.
And it's a sad one, and we've touched on it here on the Esky before. So Danny Frawley obviously drove his car high speed.
Yeah, took his own life.
It's suspected. That's
not in the right frame of mind.
No, can't be sure, but he was suffering from insomnia, depression, unmotivated.
Mental illness, he's hit the trifecta, unfortunately.
Yeah, prior to his death, and
so this was back in 2019 as well.
Yeah. So the coroner report became public, and it's a CTE diagnosis. And
what decade did Frawley play in? 90s?
80s mostly.
80s,
yeah.
Yeah, so 1984 through to 1995.
Both.
Not. I don't want to say it's not unsurprising, but the wild
west
of the 90s and 80s
it was
in professional sport.
Yeah, you watch footage from back then, and it was rough as fuck. And not that these guys, the guys playing these days won't be susceptible to something of this, but it's just more and more of it coming out. And
well, I think for a long time across all sports, defence had, I don't want to say free reign, but a lot more leeway in the rules. In the last 2 decades, nearly all sports have tried to bring the rules back in. Like you can see,
make it safer.
Like you can see the difference in soccer from where it was to Brazil at the World Cup, allegedly.
Not just Brazil, mate. Everyone.
Everyone taking dives like all of a sudden because they're just getting penalties. Like you can see the change.
They try to protect people more and more.
Exactly. It's more offensive based.
Maybe that is a good thing. We don't need to go to the diving aspect of sport.
Poor comparison, but nearly all sports gone offensive focus.
Yeah,
points bring in fans.
Yes,
let's get scores. Let's get that on.
Protect the ball carrier.
And protect the premier players from long-term injuries, because if they're not on the field, they're not technically making us money.
Yes. Anyways.
Yeah,
but it's
tangent aside, it's bloody sad, and
definitely
it's something that we've spoken about before. We hope there's a lot of money and smart people looking into this horrible disease and trying to prevent it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure who did you bring this up, James? Who was actually advocating that for retired AFL players to you submit your brains for research, of course, after your passing. Because I can't remember. I don't think it was the leagues putting it out. I think someone, I can't remember who, but someone made the recommendation that, hey, if as part of, if you're going to be an organ donor, as part of signing up to that, say, hey, I wanted my brain to be for CTE or for research in general, just so the more data, the more research points we can get. Maybe, in a decade's time, we can sort out all the concussions to the point where we've got full treatment plans or prevention to the point where it doesn't happen again.
Well, I suppose the prevention is stop playing contact sport. Like it's I don't know. It's a bloody tricky one because obviously we love the AFL, we love the NRL, we love the NFL.
But the other thing is we love technology. So it's whether can you marry the two? Is there something the NFL, of course, helmet's different, but
makes it worse.
Yes. But there's not to say that you can't also make it better. Headgear, could headgear also?
Again, I don't.
I'm talking technology. So we're like a decade away, maybe more.
More, I'd say.
Can you do something that from an impact? Yeah, like even from small impacts, the brain banging in on its skull, can we minimise that long-term damage? So this is not a problem.
Well, going back to headgear, I don't know. I don't think that solves anything because it's
NFL is the perfect example of headgear.
Well, headgear was brought in because they had too many skull fractures, so that's why they brought it in. It's like, hey, everyone's getting fucking skull fractures. Skull fractures are bad. Let's get helmets. The Sabre leather helmets, and brought it in for more detail helmets. Problem with the NFL is everyone started getting massive. Like the players got bigger and bigger, more weight behind it, more force. We're talking physics now, so the more force behind it. Helmets then became more of a weapon. But of course, the core point of the helmet was focused on skull fractures, preventing skull fractures. It's really fucking good at doing that. What it's not great at is preventing concussions. Which
is the brain moving in the fluid inside your skull.
And even little ones, like repeated hits.
Repeated little
So that's
ones.
what the research and say only in the last maybe 5 years. I'd spread it out, say decade. But I think really in the last 5 years, it's been core that research is focused on how do we use this technology? How can we use the helmets? So that's why, the padding's changed from hard foam to gel to, how can we change the face mask so the face mask absorbs the impact? They're literally doing the same sort of science they do on car crash on crumple zones in cars. That's how we put that in helmets, like for the same thing. So how do we move that impact so it actually doesn't affect the brain and the skull, that it's all absorbed in the helmet. So, we're here. I'm hoping 10 years, 20 years. Same with cricket. Like, they want to take the bouncer out. Fuck that.
No.
Like, let's work out how we can make helmets safer. Like, hey, if you're worried about hitting jugglers in the neck, all right, why aren't we wearing fucking NFL helmets in cricket? As an example, that covers more of your neck area in the process. Like,
and you did see after the death of Phil Hughes, that back little flap come into the helmets, and you hope the technology just keeps improving. That we can keep the grunt.
I think that's the point of what we're trying to. The point. Sorry to talk over you. I think that's the point we're trying to get into the story is like the more guys that submit stuff to research, the more the people that want to be involved in research beforehand. The more, and I don't want to say it's big business, but we want people in around sport that are trying to address these problems versus trying to sell merch like jersey sales. It's like, hey, let's get invested in the science of sport so we can better protect the athletes and we're better, let's sell the greatest helmet of all time in cricket. And then we can say, we're never going to have a Phil Hughes incident again because we've got total prevention. So,
I think to that point, it's a little bit of both. So you need to understand what's causing it and maybe change your technique in terms of how you play the game.
Rules help that as well to facilitate that process.
And then look into like, all right, how can we manage this from a equipment perspective, like headgear or
and we were talking about young fellas before. Like, would you want to put your young fella into like a high contact sport like this? You definitely have concern. Like we all played contact sports, so we're probably in the minority now. But it's not to say that our partners wouldn't be like, no, I don't want little Johnny playing contact sport because I've seen what happened to you three boys. We want a bright future for him. But like for me, I'd say like, hey, I'm happy if you want to play rugby league or AFL, but let's go look at headgear down at whatever. Actually, Sports Warehouse I don't think exists anymore.
Rebel, I think.
Yeah, Rebel Sport. That's shout out Rebel. Let's go down to Rebel and have a look at what headgear we can get for you. Just because that gives me a bit more confidence. And you might look shit. You're not cool like everyone else, but that's important because unless you're a long-term superstar, you're probably going to need that thing if you want to make it deep into past 70s in towards trying to get your century. Like that's what we want to aim for. And then you talk about if we don't go that avenue, what sports are we looking at? The individual sports, golf, tennis, non-contact things, less contact things, soccer, which more cardio. Then you probably go say maybe more AFL because they're trying to take a lot of the bumps out of it, more cardio based, and then you get into the hard contacts. And I threw out car racing because they do invest shitloads in trying to protect
and it's
people.
Getting a lot safer.
It's a lot safer than it was compared to again, go back to the noughties, very dangerous.
And before that, it was like, a death a season type thing.
Yes, exactly. Whereas now there's, very rare. I think they had one death in the last, I'm talking F1 kind of comparison. I think they had only in the majors, they had one in like the last decade. Like it's, yes, there's crashes, yes, there's injuries, but you see, I remember Mark Webber, like he hit the back of a car and got 20 feet in the air, flipped over, landed on it, walked away, nothing. That's if you can apply that science that they've got in F1 and how they've protected the guys from when Senna took, had his big crash and of course passed away. The difference from there to here, take that, apply to contact sports.
But then again as well, that example with Webber, it's amazing, and you see some of these crashes where you're just like, okay, they should be dead.
Take Grosjean at the end of last year, his car split in half, fireball, walks away, burnt his hands a little bit. The rest of him fine.
But then that impact, we're talking about CTE 20 years down the track, 30 years down the track.
Sure.
You might have saved their lives acutely, but then in the chronic long-term game, maybe that is doing massive damage. True. It's a pickle, isn't it? There's two things you got to be thankful for, I think. One is that the people that are a lot smarter than us that are researching this and putting their time and their lives into it. And two, the bloody warriors that go out there and that play rugby league and American football and AFL and all these gladiator games that, and we get to sit around and watch and follow and criticize and do whatever from our lounge room. So just got to be thankful for the scientists and the players, and hopefully we just keep going in the right direction.
Can I make one more comment? I want to call out commentary in this. I want to call out Gus Gould and Paul Vaughan. Sorry to pick on you too, but as great examples. I don't want to say they're complete fuckwits in this regard, but
tell me how you really feel.
It doesn't help. They always talk about the old boys,
the glory days
back in the day.
Well, someone takes a head knock in a game and they're on commentary and they go, if this is 90s, he wouldn't go off. And he's like, hey, if he wants to come back on, let's let him play, let the boys play and all that sort of stuff. And it's like,
or was it Patrick Mahomes was it a playoff game?
Yeah, Andy Reid said the same thing. If this was 10 years ago, he would have played. You're not helping the situation.
Yeah, fuck that attitude off.
Oh, exactly, because the understanding is they're in a situation where they probably can't make the best decision for themselves.
No,
You have to take that decision out of their hands because you're trying to protect them, honestly. It's the concussions and the amount. Troy Aikman as an example, when cross sports again, he double digits, if a lot of concussions. And lucky for Troy, he's more than enough coherent. His commentary is great in that regard. But edge case, concussions and these guys getting the concussions you see the research, you see the history. It's not a good thing. Nope. And having commentary and having the old boys on was like,
it doesn't help.
Yeah, it doesn't help at all. It's just instead of, you see a guy get a head knock, instead of going, oh, he should be right, or, let him play on, let the boys play, he's just like, get him off.
Yep.
He's had a head knock, get him off, get him assessed.
And
they should be pushing the agenda.
As you mentioned before, the game's changed. Like, guys are getting bigger, guys are getting stronger, guys are hitting harder. It's not the same as it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 10 years ago.
And you take someone like Boyd Colliner and James Maloney, who in the last 2 years both have had multiple concussions throughout the year. It was like, yes, they're probably good and they come back and they're healthy. But, they get another concussion in the game and they're like, oh, he's got for 10 minutes. It's like, oh, I hope he comes back and all that sort of stuff. I'm the opposite. It's like, he's had another concussion. Sit him the fuck down.
Yeah. If you want to be tough, play through a dislocated finger or
if you break a bone, like that's playable.
And that's
bones heal, your brain doesn't.
Yep. Yeah. So it's definitely something that I'm sure we'll be talking about again on this podcast.
Be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
But I think it's important to at least have the conversation and hopefully as sports lovers and as a society, we move forward.
Agreed.